My name is Ruby Lawson. I grew up in a small town called Prescott, Oregon. In our town, having a college degree was more important than being kind or following your passion. At home, we were not allowed to dream freely. We had to follow the plan, get good grades, go to a top university, and choose a respectable job like being a doctor, lawyer, or professor. My dad, Douglas, was a political science teacher at Oregon State University. He always stood tall, wore neat clothes, and talked like he was giving a lesson. My mom, Linda, was the principal of our town's only high school. She believed that if people followed rules and traditions, they would never make mistakes. My sister Natalie was the perfect child in their eyes. She memorized the Declaration of Independence when she was just 4 years old. At 18, she got into Harvard Medical School with a full scholarship. Our family threw a big party for her. My dad raised his glass and said, "This is the future of America." Then he added that online business stuff is just childish nonsense. He was clearly talking about me. I never hated studying. But ever since I was little, I was more curious about how things worked behind the computer screen. When I was 12, I fixed a neighbor's printer and earned $10 and 2 movie tickets. At 15, I made a simple website for Miss Martin's flower shop. She got her first online order just 3 days later. One day, I wore a unique outfit I bought with my own money. I felt proud. But my mom frowned and told me to focus on my SATs. She said my hobbies would not help me get into Columbia University. My dad was harsher. He looked at the laptop I was using for a client and said coldly, "If you want to be a tech support girl for life, go ahead. But don't expect any money from us." I smiled, but it was fake. In our house, being different was not allowed. Every dinner, my sister's name came up like a prayer. They talked about her big achievements. Meanwhile, I was asked if I was retaking the math SAT again. In my final year of high school, we were having dinner surrounded by college application papers. My dad had neatly arranged forms for places like Stanford and Yale. But I had something else to say. My heart beat fast as I spoke. I'm not applying to college. I want to start my own business. I already have a plan, a client, and nearly $4,000 saved from building websites. The room went silent. My mom dropped her fork. My dad stood up slowly and said, "That's not happening. Not in this house." The look on his face was not worry. It was disgust, like I had said something horrible. I did not cry. I walked to my room quietly and started packing. 1 week later, I left home with 3 suitcases, an old laptop, and a strong will. Nobody came to say goodbye. Nobody wished me luck. They thought I would fail and come back begging. My first apartment was small and old, in the suburbs of Portland. The wooden floors creaked, and cold air came in through the windows no matter how hard I tried to close them. But it was mine. I turned a small wooden table into my office. I made coffee every morning with a second-hand machine and started working before sunrise until the street lights came on at night. There was no paycheck. No pressure from family. Just me and an idea: help local artists sell their handmade products online. I called it Rustic Cart. It was simple. I made basic websites and took a 5% fee from each sale. The rest of the money went to the sellers. Oregon had so many talented people making things like pottery, candles, and baskets, but most did not know how to sell online. So I tried to help. During the day, I wrote code. At night, I emailed small stores hoping they would join. Most ignored me. Some asked where I went to college. When I said I never did, they stopped replying. One even laughed and said, "Good luck with that." My money started running out. I ate cup noodles, eggs, and beans. I turned up the heater not just to stay warm, but to fight the fear creeping into my mind. One night, I called my mom just to hear her voice. But when I told her I had not gone back to school, she said, "Then don't expect anyone to wait for you." After that call, I sat on the floor for an hour, staring into space. 3 months after starting, Rustic Cart had only 2 clients. Josie made soap. Walter was an old man who carved wood. He called me computer girl and often got my name wrong, calling me Lucy. Still, He paid me $20 a month to manage his online orders. Thanks to them, I paid my first electricity bill without using a credit card. I thought things would slowly get better. But one cold morning in February, I got into a car accident while dropping off Josie's products. No one was hurt, but my car broke down. The repair cost was almost $800, and I didn't have that money. I sat in my living room surrounded by boxes, tape, and bills, wondering if I had made a huge mistake. That night, I saw a post online about a small business meetup at the local library. It was free. I decided to go, not knowing what I was looking for. Maybe I just wanted to be around others who were trying, like me. There, I met Marka Bennett. She was in her 50s, had silver hair tied neatly, wore simple clothes, and had sharp eyes. She ran a small business accounting company called Ledgerflow. She was giving a talk about growing your product. After the Q/&A, I waited for the room to empty. Then I nervously walked up and gave her my handmade business card. My hand shook a little. I said, "I'm Ruby. I help artisans sell online. I don't have a degree. I don't have investors. But I have real customers and small but real income." Marka was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled and reached out her hand. "Do you have customer data?" she asked. I nodded, opened my laptop, and showed her the charts and order history. Marka looked at my spreadsheets and gave me honest advice. She said, "You don't need more small sellers. You need business clients." I did not fully understand at first. Then she explained, instead of selling one soap at a time, why not sell your system to 50 craft stores? You will still be helping people, just on a bigger level and with more impact. You already have the right idea. Now you just need to change the way you grow. We kept talking while walking back. My legs still hurt from the car crash earlier that day, but I felt light and hopeful. It was like someone had opened a door, and I was ready to walk through it. Right after that meeting, I changed the name of my company to Craft Logic Solutions. The old name sounded too simple. It did not match where I was going anymore. With Marka as my mentor, I shifted from selling to everyday shoppers to building software for small and medium craft businesses. Hardly anyone was helping these kinds of businesses, so it was a space we could really grow in. The first month after the change, I barely slept. I worked day and night, rewriting all the code using better tools. I sent emails to small shops all over the West Coast. Each new client helped me slowly pay off my car repair, keep the website online, and finally hire a part-time intern named Jared. He was a design student I had met at a local event. We worked from my tiny apartment. We used boxes of noodles as desks and taped a whiteboard to the fridge. It was rough, but this is where Craft Logic truly began. By fall, after over 100 cold calls that went nowhere, I got an email from a company called Maple and Sage. They had 36 stores in 6 states and were using old software that barely worked anymore. The email came from someone named Rebecca Tran. She wrote, "Your software can track inventory per store. Send us a demo." I read that message again and again, hardly believing it. Jared and I stayed up for 5 days straight building a live demo. It showed how our software could handle orders, track inventory at different stores, and send smart alerts. When Rebecca called back, she asked, "Can you finish this in 60 days? I looked at Jared. He gave me a thumbs up. "Yes," I said. "But I need to meet your tech team to connect it with your accounting and shipping systems." She asked, "Where's your office?" I paused, then said, "We work remotely for now, but I can fly to Denver whenever you need." That first meeting was also the first time I stepped inside a real office. It had clean carpets and a coffee machine that worked on its own. I wore a borrowed blazer and shoes that were a little worn out. But I stood with confidence. I answered every technical question clearly, thanks to all those long nights spent coding on my old laptop. The contract was signed for $420,000 with $150,000 paid right away. I didn't cry. I just sat in the taxi after the meeting, holding my backpack tightly, staring out the window. It felt like a whole new chapter was about to begin. From that moment on, things moved quickly. After we finished the Maple and Sage project, they recommended us to 3 other companies. One of them was Kraft, a big craft supply chain based in California. They signed a deal worth $630,000 to use our system. I officially registered the company in Oregon. We got our first real office in Beaverton and hired a team. 5 full-time employees joined, software engineers, a project manager, and our first accountant. In just 2 years, CraftLogic had offices in Portland, Denver, and San Diego. We served over 60 retail chains, and our software became a full platform. It handled orders, tracked products, connected with shipping systems, and even gave insight into customer habits. In our 3rd year, our revenue passed $1.2 million. We made over $300,000 in profit. In year 4, I was invited to speak at the Women in Tech West Coast conference. I shared how simple software tools could help traditional businesses grow. After my talk, a man handed me his business card with both hands. "I'm Michael Davis from Bright Access Ventures," he said. "We've been following your company. If you're open to selling, we'd like to talk." I smiled and took the card, but I didn't promise anything. The next week, I got 3 more offers to buy CraftLogic. The highest one said the company was worth $36 million. When I told my team, Jared said, "If you sell, I'll be happy for you. But I hope you won't. We're not done yet." I looked at the wall of our meeting room. It was covered in sticky notes showing all the features we were building next. I knew we had more to do. I said no to all the offers. Not because the money wasn't good, but because this company was not just a business. It was my story. It proved that I had chosen the right path, even though my family never believed in it. If I sold it now, it would feel like sitting back at my family's dinner table, quiet and ashamed, accepting their judgment. I was not going back to that. Even though the company was doing great, I kept my life simple. I still drove my old Subaru. I lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Beaverton. When people asked what I did, I just said, "I build software for small craft shops." My family never changed. My mom still called once a month, not to ask how I was, but to tell me how well Natalie was doing. She became the chief resident at a hospital in Seattle. Her husband published science papers. I would smile and stay quiet. But everything changed when my dad lost his job. After 28 years of teaching political science, his department was cut. He was 61 and suddenly had no income. Then, just 1 week later, my mom got diagnosed with a thyroid disorder. She needed expensive medicine, and their insurance would not cover it. When Natalie found out, she gave a cold and distant response. Natalie said she was too busy at the hospital to help. I sat alone in my office, staring at a bank statement my mom had accidentally sent to an old email I still had access to. One line stood out. They had not paid their mortgage, and it was already 16 days late. Below that was a bill for nearly $1,800 for her medicine. No one had asked me for help. Maybe they still thought I was struggling, too proud to admit I had failed. But I knew if no one stepped in, they could lose their home. I called my lawyer, Robert Kane, the same one who helped with my company's legal documents. I asked him to create a fake trust fund called Spring Hill Holding. It would look like a grant from a nonprofit helping teachers. Within a week, Spring Hill started paying their mortgage each month. The bank sent my parents a letter saying an organization was helping them because of their long service and education. They never asked questions. At the same time, I asked Robert to set up a fake company named Brightstone Consulting in Boise. Through that company, we signed a fake contract with my dad. It said he would write educational material for schools and get $2,000 a month. He didn't question it. He even bragged to his friends that he had become a state-level advisor. My mom assumed some kind stranger was helping them through hard times. Every month, I approved the payments quietly. I never asked for thanks. Then, last June, I found out Natalie had given birth to twins. She couldn't afford the daycare she wanted because of the high hospital bills. A few weeks later, 2 scholarships appeared at the daycare under the name Northwest Infant Potential Development Fund. Each one was worth $9,500 for Jacob and Lily Winters, Natalie's children. Natalie posted on Facebook in all caps, asterisk, it's a miracle. God always provides in his own way. Asterisk, I saw it and gave a small, dry smile. In 3 years, I had spent over $120,000 helping my family, covering their home, medicine, my dad's fake job, and even the twins' daycare. Everything was legal, carefully hidden, and anonymous. At work, I was Ruby Lawson, the CEO praised in tech magazines. I closed million-dollar deals, gave big speeches, and flew on private jets when needed. But to my family, I was still the college dropout who probably sold candles online. Every Christmas, I showed up in a rental car wearing an old coat. My mom would ask if I was still thinking about going back to college. My dad would just nod quietly, like he was forgiving me for failing in life. I stayed silent. But I kept paying their bills. That Thanksgiving was dark and rainy. I came home with a bottle of wine, a folder full of documents, and a USB drive. I had waited years for this moment. When I entered the house, my mom was busy in the kitchen, like always. My dad was reading the newspaper and only gave me a quick nod. Natalie looked like she had walked out of a fancy doctor magazine. Her husband, Matthew, quietly told the twins not to mess with Aunt Ruby's weird laptop again. I just smiled faintly. Dinner began at 6 p.m. My mom made a toast to health and family. My dad gave a speech about Natalie's success, Matthew's brilliance, and the grandchildren's perfect development. He didn't say a single word about me. As everyone began eating, I placed the folder on the table. I want to share something, I said. My mom frowned like I had just done something wrong. Natalie looked annoyed. I pulled out a magazine page and laid it in front of them. It was a feature from TechBridge Weekly, showing me smiling under a headline, asterisk Ruby Lawson, founder and CEO of Craft Logic Solutions, the software platform reshaping America's artisan market. Asterisk. My dad picked it up and flipped through it like it was fake. Where did you get this? He asked, sounding cold. From my own life, I said. I've run Craft Logic for 8 years. We have over 180 employees in 3 cities. The company is worth $47 million. Then I looked at them and said, I'm the one who has been supporting you all these years. I opened the folder. Inside were the records, mortgage payments from Spring Hill, health coverage documents, my dad's fake contract from Brightstone, and the scholarships for Natalie's kids. All with proof. The room went quiet. My dad stood up suddenly, his face red. You're making this up, he said. A college dropout becoming a millionaire software founder? Don't insult us. You are insulting yourself, I said calmly. I stayed quiet because I thought this family needed its pride. But I'm tired. Tired of hiding who I am just to be accepted here. My mom whispered, why didn't you tell us sooner? Because every time I spoke, I said, you made me feel like I didn't belong. So I chose to help you without asking for anything in return. Natalie leaned forward and said coldly, I work 14 hours a day to be a doctor, and you just sit and write code? Now you're a big CEO? That's laughable. I don't deny your hard work, I said. But you're not the only one who suffered. I've fallen asleep at my laptop, eaten dry noodles, because I had no money for gas or hot water. I built this from nothing. My dad slammed the table. Enough. I don't want to hear another word. You're a fraud. A disgrace. Someone like you could only make money by cheating people. I stood up. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. So that's it, I said. You don't want to know the real me. You want a version of me that never existed. Fine. I put the papers back into my bag. As I turned to leave, my mom gently grabbed my wrist. Ruby, what about next month's support? I looked at her and spoke softly. Mom, if you see me as a disgrace, then you cannot live off my money anymore. That was the last time I was in that house. It was still raining outside, but each raindrop felt light as air. I left Salem the next morning. No notes. No goodbyes. My flight to Florida left at 6:15 a.m. I sat by the window, watching the clouds above Oregon melt away. It used to feel like home. Not anymore. 3 years ago, I bought a vacation house near Clearwater, Florida. It had a red roof, white walls, grapefruit trees, and lavender in the yard. Until now, I had only visited for short breaks. But this time, I was there to stay. In the first week, I cleared out the entire house. I removed the fake antique furniture and dull art. I hired a local interior designer named Elena to help me turn it into a real home, bright, calm, and modern. A place where I could breathe. Meanwhile, I had my lawyer and all the support I had set up. Spring Hill stopped paying for the house in Salem. Brightstone ended the fake contract with my dad. The scholarships for Natalie's twins were not renewed. No one was told why. I owed them nothing anymore. 2 weeks later, I walked into Craft Logic's new headquarters in Clearwater. It was on the 9th floor of a beautiful building by the ocean. Sunlight filled the room, and the wooden floor shined. There, I met with my team, Jared, Rachel, and Dominic, who had moved from Portland to help start this new chapter. "We're starting fresh, right?" Rachel asked. "That's right," I said. "No more hiding. No more pretending. This is the freest chapter for the company and for me." Craft Logic didn't just survive. It grew even more. In just a few months, we signed 3 new clients in Florida. An investment company from Boston offered a new value for the business, $59.7 million, and that didn't even include the AI products we were planning to launch. I no longer wore cheap jeans to look humble. I no longer hid my smartwatch. I didn't have to pretend I was failing just to be accepted. I was the CEO. I was the founder. I was Ruby Lawson. I even joined the local business community. One Friday night at a networking event for women in tech, I met someone new, Caleb Meyer, a digital consultant who helped nonprofits grow. Caleb had a warm smile and a handshake that made it feel like we had known each other forever. We started talking about using technology to help young founders in small towns. Then we talked about food, specifically steamed grouper from a nearby Thai place. 3 weeks later, we had dinner for the 3rd time. That night, there was no work talk. We walked barefoot on the beach, sharing a pair of earbuds, playing the songs we loved as teenagers. With him, I did not have to explain what my company did. I did not have to avoid questions about money. "You're the only person I know who built a whole company and managed to keep it secret," Caleb said as we sat on the porch, listening to the waves. I laughed. Maybe because I used to think that if people knew, they would try to turn me into someone I'm not. But now, if someone cannot accept who I really am, they do not get to be part of my life. We clinked our pineapple mint cocktails together like a quiet promise. No pressure, no performance. I still remembered that last dinner at my parents' house, every cutting comment, every glance that dismissed me. But instead of letting those things hurt me, I now use them as a reminder of how far I have come. Every day I live as my true self is a day I have already won. I began to think about others like me. Young people with big ideas but no fancy degrees. Not everyone can spend years grinding in silence like I did. And not everyone meets someone like Marcia Bennett at just the right moment. So I launched the Ruby Foundation, starting with a program called the Forge Forward Grant. It gives money and mentorship to young entrepreneurs without college degrees, but with strong business ideas. We did not care about their education history. We only cared about what they wanted to build and why. We announced the grant at the Clearwater Tech Hub, under the warm April sun and the smell of coffee from a nearby stand. I walked on stage without any notes or a teleprompter. Just me. "There are people who can build a perfect wooden chair at 16, I said. Others who design powerful algorithms without a single hour of computer science. If we deny them a chance just because they do not have a diploma, then we're the ones who are unqualified." In just 6 weeks, we received nearly 500 applications. The first grant, $$20,000, went to Alicia Monroe, 22, from El Paso, Texas. She wanted to build a scheduling platform for local health clinics. On our first video call, she cried. "I didn't think anyone would pick me," she said. "My education section just says high school." I smiled. "Maybe you just hadn't met the right reviewer yet." Forge Forward was more than just a grant. It was my way of reaching back to the 19-year-old version of myself, the one sitting alone in a tiny apartment, wishing someone would believe in her. One June afternoon, while I was watering the lavender in my yard, my phone rang. It was Natalie, asterisk asterisk. I was going to let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. "It's me," she said. Her voice was lower now. Not sharp. A little shaky. "How have you been?" "I'm okay." There was silence long enough that I could hear the wind on her side of the call. "I'm not calling to beg," she said. "I just wanted to say thank you for everything you've done. And I'm sorry. Not a generic sorry. A real one. I'm sorry I didn't see you." I walked into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and found myself saying softly, "Thanks for calling." I did not rush to reopen doors. But I started replying to messages. I asked about the twins' health. I sent birthday wishes to Matthew. From a safe distance. Then, one Sunday morning, I received a letter. Handwritten. The name on the envelope, Douglas Lawson. His writing was sharp, familiar, just like how he graded essays as a professor. Asterisk row, I don't know how to begin, so I'll be direct. I was wrong. Wrong to believe there's only one path to success. Wrong to let pride blind me to your effort. When you spoke the truth that night, I fell apart, not because you did anything wrong, but because I realized I was no longer the man you needed me to be. If you don't want to forgive me, I understand. But I hope you know I'm proud. Asterisk. I read it 10 times. I didn't cry, but my throat tightened with something I couldn't name. Maybe sadness, maybe relief. I didn't call him back. But a few days later, I mailed a postcard from Sarasota. Asterisk, thank you for writing. I'm building the life I always dreamed of. If you'd like to be part of it, the only condition is respect. Asterisk. I kept my boundaries. I didn't fall back into the fantasy of a perfect family. But I gave them a second chance on my terms. At a women's startup dinner in Tampa, I shared my story. No drama. No sugarcoating. Just honesty. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is stop chasing love from people who refuse to understand you. The room was quiet for a moment, then everyone applauded. That was when I realized I was not just healing. I was igniting something. One sunny afternoon, I was reading the newspaper on my back porch when my phone rang. Landline, Salem, Oregon. I almost ignored it. But something told me to answer. "Hi," the voice said. "It's Mom. Linda." I didn't speak right away. "We're planning to visit Florida next month. We were wondering if we could see you." Her words were light, but they pressed heavily on my heart. 2 years ago, they called me a disgrace. And now they wanted to meet. Not to ask for money. Just to meet. "In what way?" I asked. "As the daughter you once cast out? Or as the CEO you can no longer ignore?" "As my daughter," she said. "Just my daughter. If you'll allow it." I didn't give an answer right then. I needed time, not to forgive, but to ask myself if there was anything I still needed from that meeting. 3 weeks later, I chose a small cafe by the sea. I arrived early, picked a table outside, ordered a cold brew, and waited. At exactly 9 a.m., they arrived. My father walked slower than I remembered, hair now fully white. My mother wore a simple beige dress. She looked softer. They sat down. No one spoke at first. But I wasn't nervous. I wasn't afraid. I sat steady, like the calm water beyond the patio. My dad broke the silence. "I read your interview in Founders Weekly. What you've built, it's impressive." "Thank you," I said calmly. My mom reached out and placed her hand on the table. "It took us a long time to understand you never needed to be a copy of anyone." "No," I cut in gently. "Don't say that unless you mean it. I didn't come for another polished speech." She lowered her eyes. For once, I saw the woman who had always needed control, unable to control this moment. Then my dad said, "You once asked me, if you don't see me as the pride of this family, what do you see? Today, I want to answer. You're proof that I was wrong." I didn't expect words like that. But I didn't let them define me either. "Dad. Mom. I don't live for approval anymore. I didn't build this life to earn praise. I did it to live honestly. And I won't go back to any older version of myself." Mom nodded. Not in anger. Not to argue. Just nodded. We stayed another 20 minutes. Talked about the weather. The new park. Even Natalie's kids. I wasn't ready to see them yet, but I listened. As we left, my mother hugged me. Not too tight. No tears. But long enough for me to feel something different. She wasn't trying to fix me anymore. They flew back that night. I didn't wave goodbye. I didn't look back. I walked along the shore and texted Caleb. I did it. He called right away. Did what? I sat in front of them. No anger. No begging. And I was fully myself. His voice softened. Then you've already won, Ruby. Now, every Sunday night, I host dinner in my backyard. A long table, string lights, homemade bread, shared wine. Caleb is there. Jared is there. So are young founders from the Forge Forward Fund. We do not talk about profit or strategy. We talk about purpose. About choices. About living a life that is real. I do not need a family to take me back. I have a community that chose me without conditions. And now I know more clearly than ever. You do not need to be born into the perfect family to live a full life. You just need the courage to build it yourself. I did not forgive them because they changed. I forgave them so I could be free. And for the first time in my life, I am not moving forward to prove anything. I am moving forward because I am already whole.